Hello, I'm Dr.Christian Barrientos Ichaso. I'm international business lawyer. Today is Sunday. We have a special podcast with Martin Arostegui. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel, for sharing of channel international law, international trade, international business, international companies, arbitration, and others. Today is Sunday. We have a special edition. Today is February 20, 2022, the year. It's a special and complaint podcast against corruption, against terrorism, and against drug trafficking. But this podcast in a special edition from the experience and knowledge of Martin Arostegui. He's a special investigator, international investigative journalist in various parts of the world, around the world. He worked with Voice of America, worked with Wall Street Journal, worked with the Daily Telegraph, the Washington Times, Fox News, CNN, UP, United Press International, and France 24. He's an analyst and anti-terrorism consult for the international security. Subscribe, share this YouTube channel, and thank you so much. Hello, friend of the International Law channel, YouTube. Thank you for subscribe. Thank you for this special edition. Today is Sunday 20 of the 2022 years. Thank you. It's an honor stay with a more important person for me, Martin Arostegui, my dear friend, and continue with this interview in this special edition. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Christian. Pleasure to be on board. Hi, how are you? How are things? Yes, well, there's been some developments in the money laundering situation, I believe, right? In Latin America and Europe, they just caught a huge, massive international organization, which has been possibly entering the largest amount of cocaine on record into Europe. Mostly, I believe, Bolivian originated cocaine. Production and logistical supply bases in Bolivia and other Latin American countries. We're talking about distribution, European distribution from several locations in Spain. We're talking about operational international headquarters from Dubai, where I guess a lot of the money is laundered. Yeah, it's really quite a massive operation. I don't know. Contradict me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've seen anything of the scale yet. Have you?
It's very interesting. We talk about the Bolivian hub of the cocaine in the world, and now we talk about the laundering money. In this case, the financing, the narco traffic, how financing the corruption, terrorism, and financing the narco traffic factories. No, the laundering money is the excuse for financing. This is the more important to describe how is work the laundering money in the world. Dear Martin Arostegui.
How does money laundering work in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there are several ways it works. I mean, there are many ways of money laundering. There isn't only one system. One way it works is that you deposit the funds somewhere where they are not going to be touched, and you use sources in another country to give you funds from a separate source. In fact, this was recently, I think this type of system recently emerged in Canada, where apparently Chinese government bureaucrats have been accepting bribes and possibly to allow the involved in manufacturing and the supply of fentanyl and methamphetamines to the Mexican cartels. Were while their money stayed in China, it was laundered through a system by which cash obtained through drug deals was given to them in Canada, where they physically picked it up in Vancouver, laundered it through casinos, and then took the proceeds to make buy assets in Canada, real estate, major real estate deals, and so on. Starting front companies and so on, through which the money could be moved. That's one system, which I think has become more and more prevalent as the international banking system becomes more and more controlled. Yeah, I think you're probably going to see this system apply with greater frequency. Another, of course, is you send it again. You send the money to a center where it's likely to evade control, or where it's possible to get the authorities to dar la vista gorda, as they say in Spanish, be permissive authorities, like Dubai. I'd imagine. I've never dealt in Dubai. I don't know much about it, but that's the kind of place where you could probably do this, and from there distributed to bank accounts throughout the world in smaller amounts. And again, launder it quickly into investments. So the idea is you quickly launder it into investments. Real estate is a favorite form of investment.
Real estate investment.
Yeah.
How in Brazil, in Paraguay, Uruguay now, we have information, the real estate in Santa Cruz, Bolivia.
Yeah, I know. There's a real estate boom in that part of the world, isn't there? Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's
in the middle of the crisis, the pandemic crisis, continued with the construction in the real estate in Santa Cruz is financing of large money.
Yeah,
what you think about the new rule, the money laundering, continued with Dubai? New information about the Europol, describe the Dubai financing, Dubai organization included in Brazil and Latin America in this route of the map.
It's the first time I've seen this. And again, it's indicative. I mean, I don't know much more about it than what's in the initial reports about this, but it's indicative of the international magnitude that Latin America, that the cocaine traffic from Latin America is taking. Again, I mean, I think this is partly due to the fact that you have countries which didn't used to be producers of the finished product, like Bolivia, becoming actual producers of cocaine. As I said, in the old days, the cocaine trade in Bolivia was limited to supplying the coca paste. They went to Colombia and maybe Mexico where it was processed into the final product, into the actual powder, white powdery stuff that you get on the streets. But now Bolivia has become the producer of the final product. So this, of course, greatly expands the scope and the routes through which the cocaine traffic can move. It can move more through Brazil. It can move more through Uruguay. It can move more through Argentina to European destinations, and my guess, maybe Chile to Asian destinations, Australia, and so on. So I think I think that is a very important development. That Bolivia becoming a producer of the finished cocaine product, it has played a role in expanding the international market and the international logistics of the cocaine, of the drug trade.
Now, with the more information about United Nations, describe the Bolivia increment the cocal's sembradíos, cocal's source. That's the possible front go to narco traffic and traffic. Others parts in the Bolivia implement the national parks doing a coca too. That is very, very it's very important to describe the connection with the crime, the international crime organization. Why you know about the new case in Europol? Europol have a
the European police
investigation.
What this new case?
Yeah, with Brazil and
well, again, I mean, it's what's coming out of this latest case is indicative of the magnitude of the growing scope of the South American cocaine trade into Europe, and I guess the Middle East as well. The organization that's just been dismantled was moving on a regular basis. It wasn't a one-shot deal. They were moving every few months. They were moving massive shipments that hadn't been seen before. 10 tons, I believe, that they had moved in the last shipment, and it was shipments of that volume that had been supposedly moved over a period of time, and were going to maybe move maybe in incremental amounts in the next few years. If they caught 10 tons a few years ago, that would have been a record capture. It would have been a very rare thing, but apparently that's the kind of amount they're moving now on a regular basis. And that's what that is the type of volume of cocaine traffic that this organization was dealing with.
In the last video, we talk about the connection with the Africa, the terrorist organization who financed narco traffic too. In the other video, talk Al-Qaeda in Brazil, who networking in Brazil connection. And now we talk about the connection, the cocaine. Is possibly Al-Qaeda in this organization?
Well, I know that a lot of the cocaine, some of the cocaine, I mean, not in this particular last case, but that Africa has become a route for the entry of South American cocaine into Africa, into Europe. In other words, it goes to Africa first, and from there it goes across the Straits of Gibraltar, maybe to it, and perhaps across the Mediterranean to Italy as well. From African ports, from the African coast, and that the cocaine is initially moved into Africa and then moved up to the North African coast, from where it goes to Europe. I would say that the continued instability, or well, not instability, but rather we're beyond instability. I mean, the Al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations are increasingly taking over a lot of the North African Sahel region, which is basically all that's below much of the Saharan and immediate sub-Saharan region through which the cocaine shipments would move. So yes, I mean, they will probably be playing the same role that FARC played in Colombia for a very long time, protecting the drug routes of the drug trafficking organizations, in return, of course, for protection money, and which, of course, would finance their operations locally and possibly finance their any terrorist operations they may eventually be planning to undertake in Europe. And yes, I mean, these Al-Qaeda, the Sahel, and other organizations as well, other Islamic ISIS and other Islamic State, other Islamic terrorist organizations, are expanding their control in Africa. In fact, France just announced that they were pulling out of Mali, where they've had troops, a significant military contingent, battling Al-Qaeda, and which I think we commented in previous podcasts. Their role is being taken over by the Russians. So what the Russians decided to do with the drug trade, we don't know. I imagine they're probably going to go for their own cut. The Wagner group, the mercenaries of the mercenary unit, which is employed by the Russian government at an international level now. I'm sure they're in the Ukraine as well. So I would say that whole area through which cocaine now through which there's another area for cocaine to enter the European market. The African route is now virtually completely out of the control of any Western authority.
Yeah, we talked in the last podcast, now number 7, the Warner Group is established in Venezuela. And we talk about the Hezbollah too in the other video podcast number 5 about the Hezbollah is in the middle of the Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil, establishing with casino is other money laundering do in the financial, the terrorism. And that's the root of the launder money in the Europe and Latin America. It's very, very difficult to describe exactly what is the connection with the launder money and the financial, but the investigate do. We need to more investigation about this launder money in the root of the Latin America.
Well, laundering money, I mean, I imagine a lot of it probably moves into the stock market. I mean, there are companies, drug money. I mean, there are companies in Panama and so on doing some very strange, investments. For example, they're moving a lot of money. They've moved a lot of money. One brokerage firm that's under criminal investigation now. I can't really reveal the name because it's ongoing. The process is ongoing. Had moved, for example, a lot of money into had moved money into dead energy investments. PDVSA, Vaca Muerta in Argentina, and others. I mean, companies that were that either could not be quoted in the stock market or were paralyzed or were insolvent. And it would occur to me this might be another way of laundering money. You launder money into a company which is no longer solvent, which is off the books, and from there it disappears. So that may be another system that they're developing.
It's true. Is the other system, the stock market of the bonus and actions in companies who is in other country and don't have returns in utilities. Yeah, is the lot of money doing the stock market. And FINRA, who is the institution, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, to investigate in this case the lot of money in the stock market. Yeah, I remember the other case we talk about the lot of money in the broker dealer for investment in the other countries. Yeah, is the other form to continue the laundry money. And you talk about the energy investment. It's very interesting now. Is the laundry money some companies in the energy? Example, what company?
For example, I'm not sure this is exactly a money laundering case. Okay, I mean, I'm not sure if this is a drug. This is not a drug. In fact, I know this is not a drug case. But there's a case of a company in Panama, I think BP Securities, which laundered money from a client into a series of investments in which he lost all of the money. And these were mainly dead energy. I mean, these are mainly dead companies, companies that were under some kind of legal sanction, companies that had been delisted from the stock market, like Venezuela's PDVSA, or projects that have simply stopped. That were not like Vaca Muerta in Argentina.
But yeah,
and through this system, through these investments, they lost all the money. Right. So I mean, the question arises as to whether this was maybe not done deliberately to find a way of disappearing the money and picking it up elsewhere. In other words, you by laundering, by putting money into a dead investment, a company that collapses, an investment that collapses.
It's true.
Is there not a way that you could possibly do that and you pick up an equivalent amount, perhaps deposited from you elsewhere through another source?
Yeah. Now Gazprom Bank and Gazprom Energy is from Russia company, is investigate for large money, because the corruption is all money laundering to investment in Gazprom and gas bank. Now investigation is from this direction, the Russia company. You know about the Gazprom bank and Gazprom energy?
Well, I haven't been looking into it recently, Christian. I know they're very active in Bolivia. They've become very active in Latin America and Venezuela. They're certainly active, and they're undoubtedly a way for Maduro to move some of this money around.
Yeah.
You know, this is what would have been very affected. Their operations would have been what might have been very, very much affected if the sanctions against Russia that the US have been threatening over Ukraine had excluded Russia and Russian institutions, Russian banks from the SWIFT system, because that would have made it impossible for them to make dollar transactions at an international level. So, but this apparently is not going to happen. I think President Biden said that you know, initially the State Department, and later was confirmed by President Biden, that the SWIFT exclusion of Russia is not going to be applied. So these the Russian banks, Alpha Bank and the Gazprom Bank, and will be able to continue to support their international probably operations geared to supporting Russia's expansionist foreign policy, supporting Maduro in Venezuela, supporting the governments they're going to be supporting in Africa, and so on, with very little, with no obstruction.
Yeah, it's true. Financing with Gazprom Bank financing one group in Venezuela and South Africa,
and they're doing the same. And they're doing the same in Mali.
Yeah, in Mali, it's true.
And they're going to take control probably oil. Well, there is no oil being produced in Mali yet, but I know that a lot of international oil companies were exploring Mali before this Al Qaeda group took. Although they were already active there, I remember one operation that was particularly informed about, in which the security precautions of trying to explore for oil in Mali were massive. They virtually had an entire army following the engineers, the prospecting team. But yeah, Mali has substantial oil deposits, and yeah, that's all going to go. Obviously, if Russia takes over or at least part of Mali, or supports the Mali government, unless the Al Qaeda completely overthrows them, that's all going to go to Russia. The same as or China. Maybe Russia's also going to provide security for China, which is something that's being speculated about as well.
That's the root, the Russian root of the money laundering in the corruption of the public source. This is the web of the Gazprom Bank financing. We interview in the corruption money laundering of the Russia and Putin's do this bank. For conclusion, in this web, in this podcast, what is the conclusion in this new scenario with Russia and laundering money in the war, and Wagner Group in Venezuela, traffic drugs in Bolivia, Argentina, intervening the China in regions, authoritarian regimes? How Russia?
Well, I mean, it's indicative that you know, this well, everybody's centered on Ukraine. I think we're seeing a Russian expansion worldwide. As I said, filling voids where the West is unable or incapable or no longer able to, and China as well, no longer able to operate. We had Afghanistan, which is up for grabs. I think China is probably going to get the better part of that, although Russia, I believe, is also in discussions with the Taliban. And Africa, where, I mean, it's because due to the Ukraine crisis, there was insufficient coverage of President Macron's announcement that France was pulling out of Mali, and they already largely pulled out of Central African Republic. So in fact, they're handing over the region to Russia, which seems to be interested in taking over security duties that were once being exercised by France and then other European countries. It was an EU project, which without France loses all viability. So that's the way things appear to be going. And in Venezuela, well, we know what's happening there. There is no indication that the Maduro regime is in any way going to change. And probably as a result of what's happening now in Africa and Ukraine, we'll probably become even more dependent and reliant and influenced by Russia and well, China as well, which has much more of a the financial lever on Venezuela. So that's the way it's going. I mean, the Ukraine crisis, again, I mean, it's Putin is playing a cat and mouse game with the world and the Ukraine, with the West, with NATO, with the United States. It was just announced, for example, Macron just said, I think he concluded his conversation with Putin and said that, all right, Putin had agreed to a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine, or to enforce a ceasefire. You know, I don't know how long that's going to hold, even if it has any veracity to it at all. But it just indicates that Putin has the world hanging by every word. So this is an important. This is, I think, the way things look at the moment. Listen, I mean, I'm not taking away from America's continued power and influence throughout the world, which is still highly considerable. Okay, I mean, let's not be completely saying that Russia's going to take over the world tomorrow, but that they're expanding their influence and the geopolitical leverage, undoubtedly.
Very interesting, really very interesting. Thank you so much, Martin Arostegui, for this making a special day. Today is Sunday, and we talk about the laundering money, is how they destroy the country, the society, the drugs, and traffic, the corruption, terrorists, all in this laundering money route. Thank you so much, guys, for subscribing to YouTube channel. Thank you, Martin Arostegui. And
thank you, Christian.
See you
next weekend.
Yeah,
sure.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Maybe Sunday or Saturday, okay?
Sure.
Sure. Bye, see you later. Okay. Stop.